Mahaprabhu's sannyas. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur says, I've already given a synopsis of all the facts and figures of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's last pastimes, and I have a desire to describe them elaborately. If I remain longer and am fortunate enough to receive the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I shall try to describe them again and more elaborately. And of course, it wasn't just then it wasn't just Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur who received that mercy, but we also received that mercy as well. Because by that completion, by that mercy by which he was able to complete this text, we are all blessed now with Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. And then he describes that he's become too old and disturbed by invalidity. While he writes, his hands tremble. He cannot remember anything, nor can he see or hear properly. Still he writes, and he says this is a great wonder. So he is describing the physical condition he was in, which was meriting his worry that he could not finish this book. Again, it reminds me of that very famous video of Srila Prabhupada towards the final days of his pastimes. Even in his bed, in the apparent condition he was in, he was still speaking some Bhagavatam translations. So again, the devotee is constantly engaged in Krishna Katha. And actually, there's a very sweet Mangala Charan verse in Madhya Lila, which speaks of this. And it goes, it's rather simple. It's a Shruyatam, Shruyatam, Nityam. So, speak, it's in the imperative. So it's telling people, whoever is reading it, speak, Nityam. Listen, Shruyatam. Listen, listen Nityam, listen constantly. And then it says, Giyatam, Muda. Muda means with happiness, and Giyatam means to sing. So Giyatam, sing or speak of. Again and again, there's the emphasis twice. Giyatam, Muda. So with happiness, sing. And then Chintayatam, Bhaktash, which is then to meditate upon. Chintayatam. So then meditate. After hearing, after singing off, also meditate. And who is this addressed to? The bhaktas, the devotees. And then, but what is that thing that they should be hearing all the time, that they should be singing and speaking of all the time, and that they should be contemplating all the time? It is Sri Caitanya Caritamritam. So, it is Shruyatam, Nityam, Giyatam, Muda, Chintayatam, Bhaktash, Caitanya Caritamritam. So it's saying, and in Prabhupada's translation, he says, he doesn't even necessarily say it's specifically the book Caitanya Caritamrita. Although that is the book where we are finding this in, he's saying, again, as we read in the introduction to Caitanya Caritamrita, that one should do all of this because they should do it surrounding, they should hear it, they should speak it, and they should contemplate on what? That life-giving nectar from the life and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So to constantly be engaged, again, it is to hear constantly, to sing with happiness. And then who is doing it? It is the devotees. Because this is what defines the devotees. People may say, I'm a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then what does that mean? Who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Unless we delve into the Caitanya Caritamrita, the nectar of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how can we know who we are the devotee of? Otherwise, then it just becomes sentimentalism. They will say, I'm a devotee of Srila Prabhupada, I'm a devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm a devotee of Krishna. But then who is Mahaprabhu? Who is then Krishna? Who then is Srila Prabhupada? Without delving into that, then it is an empty statement, which is why, again, that emphasis is being made on the bhakta. All of the devotees should be doing these things. It is a command given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur as they study this book, that this is what they should be doing, because this is what defines the devotees. Otherwise, it is not devotion. How can somebody be devoted to somebody they do not know? How can somebody sing the glories of somebody that they do not know the glories of? How can they meditate on something that they have no thoughts or conceptions of? So because of this imperative is given. And we are seeing here, it is very nicely embodied in Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, and of course Srila Prabhupada, who even at the later points of their manifest pastimes, they're still constantly engaged in relishing this Amrit. So then we hear there's a description, again, Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he speaks further, he speaks more and more about the nature of the Antya Lila, that he could not complete his description of it, all of these sort of things, and that he plans to delve into them in detail. So, and he says here, if I die in the meantime and cannot transcribe all of these pastimes in detail, at least the devotees will have this transcendental treasure. And this shows an emphasis, again, of that value. If this Caitanya Caritamrita is to be something that is to be so focal for the devotees, Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, it is not that he is willing to leave without giving this gift. Again, it is the importance of studying Caitanya Caritamrita that he felt it was so essential to touch all the points that, again, he then so mercifully draws out furthermore in the following chapters. But it was so essential that this knowledge be given, that this writing be completed, and therefore to be studied by the devotees. It is not that it was intended to be written and then locked away, but it was so important to be given that he felt the need to condense the essential points so that nothing would be able to prevent it being distributed. Again, this is showing the importance and value of studying Caitanya Caritamrita. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he begins the final three verses, again, are focused upon the devotees. I worship herewith the lotus feet of all kinds of devotees, both advanced and neophyte. I request all of them to be satisfied with me. I am faultless because I have written herein whatever I've understood from Swarup Damodar Goswami and Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. I have neither added to nor subtracted from their visions. And then according to the Parampara system, I wish to take the dust from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, and all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like Swarup Damodar, Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami. I wish to take the dust of their lotus feet upon my head. In this way, I wish to be blessed with their mercy. And here there is the very, very interesting point, because here Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, we were speaking when we were discussing the 9 texts that Srimati Radharani speaks, the importance of humility. And yet here he seems to say that he is faultless, which doesn't seem to come in line with notions of humility. Humility seems, in humility people normally sing of their faults rather than their faultlessness. But again, this is emphasizing that central point here. Actually, this is the greatest act of humility, because he is saying that even though I am imperfect, I am in contact with a form of perfection, a way by which I can taste perfect knowledge. I'm faultless not because of any ability of my own. He has already been speaking, even though he is a transcendental devotee, and these are all pastimes, he was speaking about his own apparent inabilities. But then after that, he speaks that any faultlessness, the reason why people should recognize these glories of Caitanya Caritamrita, because he's giving so many glories of them, isn't because of his faultlessness, but again, because he is representing what he has received from Parampara. And in this sense, we can be confident. Sometimes I will sometimes be speaking to people, maybe they're not devotees, or maybe they are, and they will sometimes say, you're speaking very strongly, you know, you shouldn't, you're speaking very confidently. What makes you think you're right? What makes you think you have any right to say anything, you know? What claim? It's a bit arrogant for you to proclaim that you understand, you know, or not that you understand, but that you can tell me what the absolute truth is. And of course the response there is, well, you're absolutely right. Like, I have no right to say that. Everything that I've ever thought in my life has come from a conditioned mind. Every thought I've ever thought is virtually useless. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Even if I'm right sometimes, then it's like a clock. The broken clock is right 2 times in a day. But that's still the means by which every thought I've ever thought is useless and pointless. And so many people today, I think we find that one of the greatest obstacles to devotion is itself, in many people who I see who are intelligent, I'm not one of them, but in people who I see are intelligent, intelligence itself becomes a roadblock, because one sees one's own prowess, and then they have their own ideas, and then when confronted with the parampara, then they think, my mind is faultless, my mind is capable of so many things. But actually every idea that has ever been thought by a conditioned mind is practically untrue, even if it may seem to have some correlation with reality, even if it seems to have some practicality, because it does not come, again, we read in the famous Chatur Shloki, that anything that is apparently seen to be not connected to Krishna is illusory, not because it is not real, but because nothing doesn't have any connection to Krishna. Any thoughts which are produced separate and outside of the means of parampara, outside of the means of the Shastras, are all faulty, because they are again built upon a mindset that is not connecting that truth with Krishna. And therefore, not only is it that he is faultless when representing the perfect parampara, But when anyone is speaking outside of parampara, then that is to be considered inherently faulty. That is, it is not that it has a possibility of being faulty. It is by its very basic essence a completely faulty proposition, because it is not a proposition coming from true knowledge, and which is obviously coming down through the parampara system. So then I tell them that, yeah, you're right, like I have no right to speak. But whatever I'm saying, whatever I'm saying confidently at least, is at least what I've read from Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada has every right to tell you what's true. You know, you have no right to disagree with that, and neither do I. I'm only saying this because I have no right to disagree with the faultless system that has come down. So because of this, in that sense, it is not an act of arrogance, but it is an act of humility to realize that this is where faultless truth comes from. Faultless truth comes from the parampara, not from oneself. So it is a glorification of the previous acharyas in all their perfection, not a self-glorification. And therefore, to say this is an act of humility. And that act of humility is continued forward, but it is not just an act of humility, because we often speak of humility as a good quality to have to get along with people. Humility is valuable because it allows us to get along, it allows us to be agreeable people, it allows teamwork to be working well. You know, it just makes you a nice person who people want to get along with. That is why humility is glorified. But actually, when we understand again the notions of parampara, humility is not only a good quality to have in a person, but it is necessary in order to be able to access this truth. This humility is not just here reflecting a good quality in Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, but reflecting the quality by which he is able to channel and write the Caitanya Caritamrita. It is not that these here are necessarily just to show us the way we should think, or a nice afterthought that we can have, but it is showing the only way by which we can again taste that nectar of the Caitanya Charita, of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Again, so according to the parampara system, taking the dust of the lotus feet of the great previous devotees, of the great previous acharyas, by that means, by that practical and necessary humility, by that he is qualified to do so. And with that concludes the second chapter of the Madhya Lila, and which concludes the introduction into the pastimes. I took a little longer than I thought I would to get through this introductory time, but I'm going to take a little longer because I was going to draw up the overline of chapter 3, but I thought first it would be nice to talk a little bit about the event which really chapter 3 sort of carries the momentum of. Chapter 3 sort of doesn't go too much into the sannyas pastimes of Mahaprabhu. It sort of carries that momentum and carries forth into his various travels, and then he's talking, of course, with Advaita Acharya, taking prasad in his house. There's various things. But I thought a little discussion about the sannyas pastimes and the purpose of Mahaprabhu's sannyas would be nice before getting into the overall structure of chapter 3. So, we know that it is said that Mahaprabhu, we worship Mahaprabhu, not actually in the form of a sannyasi. Gaur Govinda Maharaj clarified this. Even though some deities relevant to specific pastimes, they're sometimes dressed up in the sannyas garb. In general, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he was asked, how do we worship Mahaprabhu? And he said, we worship him at a very specific junction. We worship him at the junction after coming back from Gaya, after being initiated, after inaugurating Prema Sankirtan, but before taking sannyas. Another way to think of it is Mahaprabhu chanting Hare Krishna, but with hair. That is the specific junction in which Mahaprabhu is to be worshipped. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he clarifies this. And of course, we know Mahaprabhu doesn't keep that hair for long. He does not keep that form for long. He eventually takes sannyas. And the question can always be asked why he took sannyas. And this is, of course, discussed in Adi Lila, that he did it mainly as a preaching purpose. We know that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he says that the foolish people, the people are so mudha, they will even think that Krishna is a normal man. That is when Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead coming as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If people were that foolish in Dwapar Yuga about Krishna presenting himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people in Kali Yuga are much more foolish. And when Krishna is trying to hide that fact, when he is trying to act as a devotee, then people will be bewildered. They will make mistakes, they will make offenses. And we read about this in Chaitanya Bhagavat that's described, that Mahaprabhu, when he was coming back and beginning to taste, of course he was always tasting this devotion, but he was manifesting this taste. One day in his pastimes, in his ecstasies, he was saying, Gopi, 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 Gopi. He was saying constantly like this. And one person, one Brahmin in the area of Navadvip, he heard him and he said, actually, this is not proper. You should not be saying Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, this is actually echoing the attitude of Madhavendra Puri's bogus disciple. This idea, again, we were talking about surrendering to parampara. One should not have this correcting mindset. One should not think that whatever knowledge they have allows them to then correct those who are senior more. If they see a fault, the fault is within the junior devotee, not within the senior devotee. It is within one's perception or in one's knowledge, not in the senior devotee. But either way, he saw this and he spoke to Mahaprabhu and he told Mahaprabhu, he said, Mahaprabhu, no, he didn't say Mahaprabhu, he said, stop doing this. What are you doing? Don't you know in the Shastras we are told to say Krishna's name? Not to say the Gopi's name like this. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefits. You should read Shastra. I'll send you the Veda-based link. I'll let you know the proper way, But you should understand, say Krishna's name. Do not say the name of the Gopis. And Mahaprabhu, he became very distressed hearing this. And he went to chase with a stick. He went to chase this person. And as he was running after this person, he was running and running, and his chasing would not stop. In his disturbance, in his anger about this moment, he kept on running and running and running. And it is said he was completely drenched. He was completely drenched in sweat. And at that point, the other devotees in Navadvip, they stopped him from chasing this Brahmin. And this Brahmin, he was still afraid, so he kept on running and running and running, even after Mahaprabhu stopped his pursuit. And then after this happened, this Brahmin, he went to all of his friends, and they all spoke among each other. And he was saying, I went to the same school as him. He thinks he's so good, He thinks his father's some great Brahmin. Well, my father's a pretty good Brahmin too. They sort of get together like teenage girls when they're upset with someone else, and they had a little session, speaking gossip about Mahaprabhu. And they were saying, my father, he's as good as his father. We went to the same school together. We were educated in the same way. He's lost the essence of Vaishnavism. The essence of Vaishnavism, the essence of a Vaishnava, is to serve the Brahmins. So therefore, he has learnt something incorrectly. He is not behaving in the proper way for Vaishnava. The next time he does something absurd, have you heard this? He's saying Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. We should teach him, we should teach him what the Shastras actually say. This is not Shastrik. This is bogus. They were saying like this. And so they were saying the next time he does something like this, we will reprimand him. And Mahaprabhu, obviously, he knew this was happening. He is Krishna himself. He is the avatari. So he was aware of these things they were saying. And he began to fall into a lament. And he said, I had prepared a great medicine for all the people of the world. But instead, it appears that I've poisoned them all instead. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, the meaning of this, well, we can infer from the pastime. Mahaprabhu, he came to give such a high and wonderful gift to all the people of the world. Such a beautiful gift, and he wanted to distribute it. But instead, he's just invited these people with these Kali Yuga denizens to instead offend him, to instead offend these higher moods. Instead of giving that gift that he wanted to give, he feels dejected. He thinks, what's happened? By trying to give this gift, instead I've invited them to do offense. So, what to do? And like this, he became very dejected. He became very upset. And he began to think. He thought, well, actually, maybe I'll take sannyas then. And so the rumors go around, and he speaks to Nityananda Prabhu, and he tells Nityananda Prabhu, he says, you know the purpose why I've come here. You know the purpose why I've advented onto earth. You know that I wanted to liberate all the people in this world, but it seems rather than liberating them, I'm sending them to the deepest of hell. Because every time I try to explain something, they don't take me seriously. But they do take sannyasis seriously. And saying like this, Nityananda Prabhu, he began to be aware of the desire in Mahaprabhu's heart. And the word got around. Mahaprabhu was telling the other devotees. And as all the other devotees were speaking, each one of them, they could not bear this thought of Mahaprabhu shaving his head. They began so distraught. Mukunda, he could not continue his kirtan. And all of them, Nityananda Prabhu, he began aghast. It's said that Sachi Mata, when she was speaking to Mahaprabhu, just before he was about to take sannyas, it is said that she became like the personification of the earth, of Bhudevi. Because the earth, it is still, it does not move. It is stationary. And in the same way, because of her pain, because of her distress of realizing this, she did not move her face. Her pain was so intense, she could not express any emotion. Any devotee who tried to speak to her, she would not even acknowledge them. She was just completely absorbed in that pain. But again, like the surface of the earth, the one thing that is in motion, the one thing that does move, are the flowing rivers on the face of the earth. In the same way, Sachi Mata, the only thing that moved on her were the torrents of tears flowing down like rivers. In the same way that the earth has all these rivers flowing, and everything else is staying still, she stayed completely still, stationary, not moving. The only thing that moved was the torrential outpour of tears coming from her eyes. And the devotees were hearing like this. They were hearing again and again and again. There was the whispers going around. They became so distraught at this idea that Mahaprabhu, that he would abandon us. That he would leave us, that he would shave his beautiful hair. It said the barber who shaved Mahaprabhu's hair, he never shaved, he gave up his job. He was so tormented by the fact that he had to cut such a beautiful hair off. He began, it's recorded in general that he started selling sweets. That became his new profession, because so much he couldn't bear to cut somebody's hair again after shaving such beautiful hair as Mahaprabhu. And so they were all weeping, and they were all intensely upset. And Mahaprabhu, every time he would speak to them, and at the end they would just say, well, we know you are the Supreme Personality. How can we tell you what to do? Even a blade of grass cannot move without your permission. Even a blade of grass does not move without your permission, but in the same sense, even Brahma cannot do a single act without you authorizing it. So who are we then to get in the way of your desire? If this is your desire, then we cannot stop it. And so each one of them was consoled like this. Even Vishnupriya, because she did not hear directly from Mahaprabhu, it said. She heard through the grapevine, she heard through the whisperings. And she was so distraught when she heard this, and she realized that this was going to happen, that it said there was a full abhishek of Mahaprabhu's feet. By the constant tears she was crying as he came that night. As he came home that night, and as they stayed together, she was constantly crying so much that her tears would cause constantly to clean the feet of Mahaprabhu. Constantly like this, she was weeping. And she told Mahaprabhu, she said, I have heard you are planning to take sannyas. And Mahaprabhu initially, he avoided it, and he said, oh, it's all fine, don't worry. And he didn't give her an answer, he just said, don't worry. And then she thought maybe it's fine. But then again, she woke up completely distraught because she did not hear an answer. And then Mahaprabhu, he explained some philosophy. He said, actually, no one is a husband or a wife. We are all spirit, soul. These are all Mayic conceptions. This is not the true nature of things. And she says in her deep pain, she says, you're saying all these things. It must be because I'm a terrible wife that you're planning to take sannyas. Your sannyas is because I am such a terrible and awful wife. Because I am not pleasing you, because I've done such a bad job, now you're trying to renounce family life. She said like this, and then she said, fine, I understand how it is, I accept it. But please, it hurts me too much to even think that you will take sannyas. So I will die, and I will burn my body. I will have it all done, so you will not have to deal with me anymore. So you will not be able to deal with me anymore, but then you can enjoy this household. Clearly, I have ruined this household. This household has been ruined because I have been a terrible wife. So I will end my life, I will leave this place, but please just do not take sannyas. And Mahaprabhu, he hears all these things, and he still continues to try to console her. But as it goes along, she's not able to be consoled. And then at the end, he shows her his form as Vishnu. And she sees this, and with this she has some consolation. But still, she cannot take away that feeling she has of him being her husband. Sometimes it's said that Vishnu Priya is the Bhu Shakti, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually clarifies that even though she is Bhu Shakti, she is also a manifestation of a mixture of the Samvit and Hladini Shaktis. She is also to be considered the internal potency as well. Because sometimes the reason why it is mainly proclaimed that she is Bhu Shakti, even though that is true, is because as we were discussing the various Apasampradayas, the Gora Nagaris, they will say, oh, she is the internal potency, therefore she is Radharani, therefore we can also have, because it is Radharani and it is Mahaprabhu in the married life, therefore we can take a form in that married life and we can be having a similar role as her. So they will abuse this principle of understanding that she is the internal potency. So in order to prevent this, and it is true, it's not a preaching strategy that she is also a manifestation of the Bhu Shakti, but in order to minimize the abuses of a misunderstanding of that, it has mainly been emphasized by Vrindavan Das Thakur that she is the Bhu Shakti. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually says she is also to be considered a manifestation of the internal potency. So Vishnu Priya, she becomes very distraught, she becomes very upset. And her heart is broken as well. We know so famously of her japa, where she would only eat 1 grain of rice for however so many rounds she did. And she would lose so much weight. And she would never leave, except to do maybe a puja or something. She would never leave the house of Sachi Mata. So she also was absorbed in such great pain. And then one may ask, again, how Mahaprabhu managed to take sannyas and why he needed to take sannyas. We know it was for a preaching purpose. Yes? Again, that is how that pastime began. There's another pastime also given, which is both tie-in to the reasons why Mahaprabhu took sannyas. The other one was that there was a Brahmin who wanted to engage in the kirtan with Mahaprabhu. And so he knew that Mahaprabhu was doing like a house program in a house, and he was doing a kirtan there. And he was doing this very sweet kirtan. And so this Brahmin wanted to go. But when he went up, the house was already full. And so the devotee at the front door said, sorry, I beg your forgiveness, but I cannot let you inside. And this Brahmin was so disturbed. He was so disturbed and so upset that he was insulted like that the next time he saw Mahaprabhu, seeing Mahaprabhu, he ripped his Brahminical thread and he said, I curse you, that you will have to abandon the beauties of your family life. And Mahaprabhu, hearing that, became ecstatic. And he became filled with joy. It is similar as when Ramchandra was exiled. He said, I'm so grateful, because normally a child by one action can only please one parent. But by the fortunate arrangement of what has happened here, I'm able to please both my father and my mother and my stepmother. By pleasing these two with only one action, I'm the most fortunate person. So he took that condition and he saw it as a pleasant thing. In the same way, Mahaprabhu, hearing this, he thought, fantastic, what a good arrangement. Again, similar to Parikshit Maharaj, being cursed to die in 7 days, he didn't willow and think, oh, what a terrible condition. He saw it as a wonderful opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was another pastime about why Mahaprabhu took sannyas. But again, even though it might make sense for preaching purposes, for him to be a sannyasi. We know sannyasis were so revered, especially Mayavadi sannyasis, which is why he did not take the Tridandi Vaishnava order. Although when we get to the later parts of chapter 3, there'll be an interesting elaboration at the Dandabhanga pastimes about how Mahaprabhu, in a sense, is acknowledged as a Tridandi sannyasi. But he did not take. He took the Mayavad sannyas. We see this especially reflected in their pastime in Vrindavan with Balabhadra. Because when Mahaprabhu was in Vrindavan, lots of the locals, they were saying, Krishna, he has reappeared in Vrindavan. And in a sense, they were right. It said the goddess of fortune blessed them all. Because Mahaprabhu was in Vrindavan, so what they were saying was right. But it's a bit like a Jamil saying Narayan. It's the right thing, but the wrong sort of intention. But they were thinking that actually, at the place where Krishna danced on Kaliya's heads, there he is coming again and he is dancing. And so everyone was absorbed, and they were thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is great. Krishna has returned. And so everyone is going, and Mahaprabhu was still staying in Vrindavan, not too bothered by this. But then Balabhadra, he was constantly serving Mahaprabhu. But at one point he said, Mahaprabhu, like Krishna, he's reappeared. Do you reckon I can go? And do you reckon I can just have a quick look? Like, everyone else is really excited. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he writes very nicely that Mahaprabhu mercifully slapped him. Because when somebody's saying things like that, it's a mercy to take them back to their senses. And Mahaprabhu, he slaps him and he says, you're so learned. You have read so many books. Now you're speaking these foolish words. Like all these fools, they're going. But obviously the implication there was, I would expect better than you to succumb to some fad, to some peer pressure. And then he said, okay. But Mahaprabhu, he decided to console him a little, and he said, okay, it's all right. Just you wait. Tomorrow, you will be able to see Krishna. And then the next morning, a very learned scholar came, and he came to visit Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was speaking with the scholar, and Mahaprabhu was asking him, they're having a conversation. And then Mahaprabhu brought up this topic, and the learned scholar, he said, people are saying that Krishna has reappeared. But actually, this is nothing more than foolish rumors. And you can imagine Balabhadra at the time would have been a little embarrassed to be hearing this. And he said, actually, what is happening is there is a fisherman in the middle of the night, and he's throwing out his nets. But because he cannot see so well, he is using these torchlights to illuminate the water so that he can be guided in seeing these things. And then so because of that, the people are seeing it in the middle of the night, and they're seeing the nets, and they're thinking these are like the snakes of Kaliya. And they're seeing the torchlights, and they're thinking these are the wonderful gems. And they're seeing this simple fisherman, and they're thinking, wow, this is Krishna. So foolishly, they're thinking like this. And so, saying like this, Mahaprabhu, he is hearing this. And then he says, so Krishna has not returned to Vrindavan. And then the learned scholar, he said, no, Krishna has returned to Vrindavan. Here we see you. And seeing you, we know that Krishna has returned to Vrindavan. And Mahaprabhu, he famously closes his ears and says, I don't want to hear any of this nonsense. Stop saying this. To anyone who thinks a sannyasi may be great, but he is only great because he is a small part and parcel of the Supreme Lord Narayan. Because at the time, they would say, Om Namo Narayanaya, when they would see a Mayavadi sannyasi go by. Because they thought, here is Narayan walking past me. The great irony of it was, if they were to see Mahaprabhu, who would be one of the few Mayavadi sannyasis to chastise them for saying it, would have been the only time they were right. Because when they would be seeing him, they were actually seeing Narayan himself. But, so he said, do not say like this. But the reason that he had to condemn that reflected the great esteem that these sannyasis had at the time. So because of that, he had to take it. This is why he says, those same Brahmins who are planning to attack me, who are planning to show that I am nonsense, the same Brahmins who were upset by me chastising their chastisement of me, those same Brahmins, they will worship me, they will respect me, they will listen to what I say if I take sannyas. So, with this mindset, he is doing this. However, there can be a greater question asked. Surely there could have been another way. Surely there could have been a way that did not hurt his associates so much. Maybe if he did not have associates like Vishnupriya, like Sachi Mata, maybe if they were not there and Mahaprabhu decided that he will incorporate his many associates in his sannyas lila only, maybe then it could be said, okay, then he did it for preaching purposes. But still it is a question often asked. Why was it necessary for him to establish such wonderful pastimes, such wonderful relations in householder life like this and then renounce them? Why would he need to do such a thing? And how could he do such a thing? And we read again from this, we know there's the external and internal pastimes. The external and internal purposes for Mahaprabhu's pastimes. The external purposes of preaching, that is, it's clear to see how the sannyas fulfills that. But of the internal purposes, we hear that he wanted to taste the mood of Radharani and the gopis. He wanted to taste specifically the three ecstasies that Radharani tastes. But in a further deliberation, even though those are the three main points given, there's also further elements. It's not that it's restricted to those three. There's further degrees, further elements to his internal motivation to Advent. And one of them we know is that at the end of the Ras Lila, Krishna, he's speaking to the gopis and he says, I cannot repay you. What you have given to me, how could I repay you? I can only give myself. He can only give himself because, again, Krishna is ye yatham mam prapadyante. He is saying like this, he will reciprocate whatever his devotees give. And if his devotees give themselves fully, then what else does Krishna have but to give himself? Sometimes it's said that Krishna Prem is obtained on the second chanting of the Mahamantra. Shuddha Nam, at least, not Namaparad or Namapas. But on the second chanting of Shuddha Nam, it is said it is to be considered achieved. Because by the first chanting of the Mahamantra, it is so pleasing to Krishna by hearing this that he does away with all ones. One is to be considered liberated, one is to be considered guaranteed entrance to go back home, back to Godhead. Done. All complete. But by the second time of chanting it, Krishna has nothing left to give. Krishna has already given all the benedictions he can give. So then by the second chanting of this Mahamantra, then he gives himself. Because that is all that he had left to give. Of course, again, Shuddhana. But, so, like this, Krishna, he's saying, I have to give myself. And then so it's said, Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he ties this again. Mahaprabhu is coming as a devotee to taste this attitude of those gopis who gave themselves fully. And also, in a sense, to give himself to those gopis. And that is where this arises, the internal reasoning for why Mahaprabhu had to take sannyas, why he had to abandon the family relations, the wonderful environment he had arisen in Navadvip. Because it's described, we know in Bhagavad Gita, that the person who is properly fixed on the spiritual path, they are single-minded in focus. But the person who is unfixed and wavering, he is many-minded. He has many minds. And of course, we know the gopis, forget about being on the path, they've achieved the destination of the path. And therefore, they embody that single-mindedness. And of course, we know so many pastimes where they do that. Their minds are completely absorbed purely in serving Krishna. Every other consideration, we know the very famous pastime of Krishna's headache. When Krishna said, only the foot dust of my devotees can cure this headache. And all the other devotees who visited, none of them wanted to give because they thought, we might go to hell, we might go here, we might go there. This is a severe offense. But only the gopis were so single-minded, that their only purpose, their only joy is to give relief, to give pleasure to Krishna. Only because of their single-mindedness were they able to give it. And even when being confronted with the fact that, don't you know that this is not an action that will take you to the greatest of places, they will say that no hell is worse than the hell of us knowing that Krishna is suffering. Such a single-minded pointedness, such a single pointedness to their mind, that they embody that fully. But Krishna is having many devotees. He is not so single-minded. Even though in a sense he's having the greatest reciprocation with those devotees, and of all those devotees, Radharani, he's having many devotees, many associates. He is not single-pointed in his focus. He is, even though he's not walking that path, it doesn't matter. It's not that he's badly walking that path of spiritual life, because he does not need to walk it, but he does very much embody the person who is variegated. Because of course Krishna relates to all of his Shaktis. And even though in one sense they're all one, Radharani, they all expand out variously. So in Navadvip, he is pleasing all these many associates around him. All these very many family members and friends and all of the sweet pastimes that happen there in Navadvip. He is surrounded by all of them, and he is divided in his attention. His attention is divided. But that was not the mood that the gopis approached him with. And therefore that is not the mood that he can repay them with. If he is trying to repay them with the same mood that they paid him with the first time, he has to find a way that he can enter into a single-minded way of life. A way of life that abandons every other concern and consideration. A way of life which allows him to freely move with only one concern in mind. And obviously it is within the sannyas, within the sannyas ashram, that he can find that. He does so, obviously, to preach externally, but internally as well, in order to repay that single-minded devotion. Not just devotion will repay, not just the normal devotion of Krishna, which is split among various devotees, but a single-minded, abandoned one. In the same way that the gopis had to abandon all of their concerns for dharma, for their family life. In the same way that they did that, Mahaprabhu, in order to repay them, in order for him, who is Krishna, that same Krishna who expressed his inability to repay them, in order for him to repay them, he too had to renounce all of that. And it is there that the internal drive. How could Mahaprabhu cause Sachimata, Vishnupriya, Nityananda, all of these associates, how could he cause them so much pain? There would have to be a reason. And this is the reason here, that he had to go through such an intense abandonment in order, again, to repay them for what they gave him. So we see in there that the sannyas, again, there's all the internal and external aspects to Mahaprabhu's pastimes. There's the external aspects where he's very much playing the role of the Yuga avatar, he's giving the Yuga dharma, but also there is that internal role, that internal purpose of experiencing what the gopis experienced and paying them back, returning to them what they gave him. So because of this, these two come together. They come together continuously in Mahaprabhu. Again, there we go. But they come together very strongly in Mahaprabhu's sannyas. And so Mahaprabhu, he leaves then. He crosses over the Ganga. And as he crosses, it's said that for the first time in Navadvip, the trees, they did not have any fruits. That the waves, Jannavi stopped her waves. The Ganga became still. All of the animals, they made no sound. The only sound that could be heard was that deafening silence of pain. The only thing that could be heard was the constant flowing of tears. The sound of the river flowing was replaced instead by the sound of tears flowing. And like this, Mahaprabhu, he left and he went. And the place that he went to meet the person who would soon become his sannyas guru. It is actually considered in local traditions to be renamed by Sachimata. It's actually considered to have the name to being the place, the town, which is a thorn, or a source of suffering, or a source of pain. It was given a new title, because so much pain it brought her, that she renamed it like this. And so, going there, he met his sannyas guru. But he would not yet be his sannyas guru. And so he requested, he said, please give me sannyas. And he was a bit bewildered. He thought, well, this is Supreme Person. I cannot give this person sannyas, Who am I to give this person sannyas? And he rejects him. And rejecting him, Mahaprabhu, he begins to think of some plans, some ways, because he must take sannyas, again, to fulfill this necessity to preach and to deliver all of the fallen conditioned souls, but also in order to repay those gopis who sacrificed so much in order to please him. He thought, I too must be as persistent as they were in their constant single-minded focus in pleasing me. I must have the same single-minded focus. And with this, he approaches his sannyas guru and he begins to have his second plan. And we'll go over that tomorrow, and then we'll get into the third chapter. So, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Thakur ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya.